It's nice to be here. 2 weeks ago, we were sitting in Paris because there was a meeting of all the networks, and we just started to talk, three of us, what is urban fringe? I don't know. So what I will do now very briefly is to give some background ideas, how, on what basis we can think about urban fringe. Which one is this one? Okay. First, we have to know what is urban. It is not at all clear. This is a map of Budapest. You have a inner city, a historic part. Probably if you come as tourist to Budapest, you will never go out from this part. But if you are an urban explorer like me, then you probably go to this part, which is the administrative area. But Budapest is really much bigger. So if a developer lands in the airport, for him everything is Budapest because he can reach it within 1 hour. So the first question is, what is urban? And here I would like to call your attention to some issues because there is some development in this regard. The OECD and the European Commission made a analysis how to define urban areas. I will not go into the details, but they are doing it forgetting about administrative boundaries and just look at the map and define urban on the basis of density. And then they put together from grid cells, and then on this basis, we don't have time to go into details, they defined urban areas. And then they went further. They were thinking about what are the functional urban areas. The functional urban areas where people have their houses, but they go to work, which is the housing market, the travel to work areas. So they continued with this method, and they also included the commuting questions. And now here is the result. If you look at the map, if you look at from the airplane, you look down, then you will see the morphological areas. You can see more or less where the dense area of a city ends. And you can see that in Europe, here are the cities, how much bigger the morphological area of the city is from the administrative boundaries. It is, for example, shocking that Paris is only a 2 million city within the periphery, but the real Paris is almost 5 times bigger than the administrative. So the mayor of Paris has very little to say until Grand Paris will be established. But the same problem in Lisbon, the same problem in Manchester. So the administrative borders, they don't tell anything. You should think and decide about your city, about the urban area in the functional urban area context. And this is probably my first suggestion, that if you think about the fringe, wherever the fringe is, it is part of the urban area of your city, and the fringe should be back calculated from the urban area and not from the historic center, not only from the historic center outside. One good example for governance on the functional urban area are the French cities. For example, here you have Lille. Lille is a quite small city of 200,000 people, but all the basic decisions are taken in Lille Metropole, which is 1.2 million people, having 85 mayors together. This is the correct size where you can decide about strategic planning, about housing, about transport, obviously. 85 mayors are sitting together and they make joint decision. And if someone asks the mayor of this settlement, what the hell you gave up your power to decide about your area, then he can proudly say that I am part now of a decision-making body of a much larger area. I think this is the correct approach. In Eurocities, we made an analysis which cities have something like that in Europe, and this is probably those cities which are close to this functional urban area governance issues, and this is again a bit too much. But here you have Amsterdam is not so bad because they have a delegated organization with some functions on the metropolitan area level. The best example in Europe is probably Stuttgart, which has an elected body on the metropolitan area level. But there are not too many good examples in Europe. Anyway, you should avoid something. You should avoid single solutions. I think this kind of compact city is the matter of the past. This kind of technical park, I think the technical parks are the most threatening examples of non-integrated development in a city, but also this kind of ghettos of the poor people. This is an area for Roma people who were living in much worse conditions, in much worse as housing, but they have got these flats which are even further away from the job opportunities in the city where they were living. So anyway, this kind of separated single track solutions should be avoided in the urban fringe. And these are my last pictures. If we think about the functional urban areas, then there are many patterns in Europe, and I'm very happy what Martin said, that this project is a process. We don't know at the moment exactly in the 9 cities where the fringe areas are. In some cases, the fringe areas are here, like in St. Petersburg. This is the density gradient. These are the kilometers from the city center. This is the historic town. This is the large housing estates. In between are the fringe areas, in a sense, in St. Petersburg, because this was the area where it was too costly to demolish housing, so the large housing estates were built further away. And now you have something lacking in between. But in other cities, maybe somewhere else will you find these areas where there is the biggest contradiction between the possibilities and the existing urban fabric. And I would just show you one probably clear example. This is Krakow, a very nice city I suggest you to visit. And this is the land price gradient. And again, here is the large housing estate, Nova Huta, which means that there are much more housing in quite far away from the city center. And here you have 3-4 kilometers from the city center, you have something which is almost lower density than the land gradient would suggest. This is again a fringe problem. So sometimes the fringe means that it is less dense than it could be, and in other cases it might suggest that it is much more dense than it should be on the basis of the land gradient. So it's a very difficult question, and each city has to define it by itself, what they understand by fringe. And the only thing which I know is clear, that you have to start from the functional urban area thinking. How big is how big area should be dealt together? What is the future? Is it growing or shrinking? And how can we really stop the suburban sprawl? What should we do inside the city, but a bit outside from the historic? So I just told you my doubts, and I hope that